back to girl talk. What's it called? Yeah, you start again.
We haven't got the time to get the giggles, so we're just going to go straight in.
Exactly.
Girl talk. Welcome back to Girl Talk.
We're sorry for being MIA. Louise was actually dying and coming back to life.
I nearly died.
And then we were just going through, we were both just had a lot going on in our lives.
Life's just very busy.
It was really, we're both very busy people. And with the time difference and everything that you had going on, everything I had going on with like the house and the move and just your stuff with life, like it was just a lot.
You've moved house since we've last been on the podcast together. Yeah. You've moved into the most incredible house.
And all my shit got destroyed.
Yeah, you got mold over everything.
That's okay. We have lawyers on it now, so they're going to get their ass kicked.
Yeah, that was stressful.
Yeah.
You've moved house. I've moved out of my house also, and then I've moved countries. So we've had a lot, and then I nearly died of dengue fever. So we've been like going through
which is called the bone breaking. What's it called?
Yeah, the bone breaker.
Fuck me.
People are like, oh my God, I'm so sorry you were so ill. And I'm like, I love that from you, but like so ill like doesn't cover it. Like
you actually nearly died.
I actually nearly died. It was the worst experience of my life. We've gone through a lot, but we're also good.
We're so good.
And we are in the most beautiful space. So we're in Tulum right now, together in Tulum.
I know. Yay.
So we're to be sat with you. Normally we're like laughing through a screen.
I know. And like I think, when did we last do one? We last did one when I was in Rome. Oh my God, that was a while ago.
Yeah,
that was like 4 months ago maybe.
Life goes quickly, hey?
Seriously. Okay, so we're just going to jump straight into the topic of conversation today. We wanted to actually bring some authenticity to you guys because we know that with Instagram and everything, it can definitely be a highlight reel, and people assume that, you know, just because you're in a healthy relationship, things are perfect. Yeah. And I actually think a healthy relationship is really about learning to love somebody, even just through those human moments. Yeah. And that doesn't mean it's perfect all the time. Like there can be tiffs, there can be situations, there can be struggles, you're going through things. And I always think like, and I know that when you're in a relationship, like stuff comes up in new ways that it just hasn't come up before. And that's why it's so important to like do the work before you get into a relationship and have the self-awareness so that you can know, oh, this is like a me thing coming up, and not project it onto your partner.
It's like that Taylor Swift song, like, oh fuck, I can't remember the lyrics. It's me, hi.
Yes.
That was the worst thing ever. I'm the problem, it's me.
I did a reel on that the other day.
Yeah, because often we are actually the problem. But that's a whole nother episode. Let's not go into that.
And not always, but like
sometimes.
But like a lot of the time.
Often
like,
you focus on other people's, your partner's flaws or the red flags of other people without actually ever being like, what am I?
Oh my God, I literally said this yesterday or somewhere else on an episode or a reel, I don't know, of like, stop. Like if you're having this constant struggle with dating, maybe it's not always men. Yeah. Maybe it's actually you're the problem. Well. Like maybe you're the one that is putting yourself in situations where you keep saying men are X, Y, and Z, but actually you are the issue. And okay, maybe he doesn't want to be in a relationship, but why is that wrong? Yeah. Like why is then he at fault? Yeah, maybe you're the problem because you're not being honest and loyal to yourself.
Self-reflection. Important.
Okay, so let's talk about what's been going on in our relationships lately and give some real shit.
Yeah, because I just feel like what Monica said, you look at everyone else's relationship and I feel like everyone else looks like they're in these perfect relationships. Yep. They're fucking all the time. They're traveling all the time. They're so happy, etc., etc. The truth is that relationships are vehicles for growth. Yep. And I'm very honest about challenges that I face in my relationship. But it's very easy to just only see the highlights. So today we were like, let's talk about like the realities. Yep. So maybe we should just talk about like something you've been navigating in your relationship. I'll talk about something I've been navigating in mine, and we just jam on that.
Perfect. All right. Do you want to go first?
Yeah. Okay. So if anyone listening that doesn't know, I had dengue fever. I was incredibly unwell for 10 days. It was a very stressful, scary experience. And of course, like Monica said, it's called the bone breaker. So I was like so sick, talking about having a blood transfusion, et cetera, et cetera. So of course, I can't roll over in bed because I'm in so much pain. Of course, I was not intimate with my partner, right? Fuck me, I couldn't even walk to the bathroom, let alone like suck his dick. I couldn't even swallow a paracetamol.
Yeah, Jesus Christ. Like,
and that is a million times smaller.
Wait, let's just all pause a second. Louise could not speak, and we're both Sagittarius here. We both love to speak. There is never a problem. We never had the issue of nothing to say.
Never.
And you could not and did not want to speak.
I could not speak.
That says it all. Like, a Sag that does not want to speak and wants to be left alone.
Is a Sag that is dying. On her deathbed.
Like that is how you know when a Sag is in the deepest of her darkness and when she's not talking. Like whenever I'm not talking, my boyfriend will always be like, babe, what's wrong? Like something is wrong, you're not speaking. And I'm like, no, everything's okay. Like,
we vocalize everything.
Correct. We over communicate. That's the thing. Maybe that's a problem. That's actually sometimes a problem in our relationship.
Yeah, me too.
We over communicate.
Yeah, like me too. And my boyfriend's like, babe, we don't actually need to talk about this. Like, it's not actually. We don't need to deep dive in psychoanalysis, analyze this. And I'm like, at the beginning, I was like, no, it's called healthy communication.
Yeah.
And now I'm like, do you know what? Actually, we can just move forward without making an issue out of this.
Exactly. Everything doesn't need to be something that we analyze. I love it. Okay, sorry, keep going.
Okay, so I couldn't even swallow paracetamol. So obviously, I was not like showering down on some D, right? Okay. So 2.5 weeks of dengue fever, and I really hope my parents aren't listening, started to get a bit better. But it wasn't like one day I woke up and I just got better. Like the next week, my mental health was so bad. I really felt for people that have depression because it's something that I've not experienced in maybe a decade. And I was depressed fully. Now, I understand that that's from the impact of the virus and the inflammation, and you inflame your brain and your gut gets fucked up. So I knew what to do with it, but I was not me. And I had no sex drive. I had like nothing, no desire to do anything. And I genuinely was like, oh my God, like maybe it's never going to come back. Like maybe actually my relationship has run its course. Like these are things that people never admit, right? You have a drop in your sex drive and you start to panic a bit, right?
Especially if you're really horny all the time.
Or like intimate a lot. And so I was like really panicking. And then I felt like disconnected from my boyfriend because like having sex and being intimate together is a big part of like
a relationship,
being close to someone.
Yeah, amen.
So then we would like lie in bed at night and just like watch TV. And I was like, oh my gosh. I was like, this is what people say when they've been in a marriage for like 10 years.
Oh my God. That's like greatest fear.
Yeah. And so I was like worried. I was worried about me. I was worried about my sex drive. I was worried about our relationship. I just didn't feel good. And I think when you're post-viral or post-illness, like you also are just so sensitive to everything. And I was so emotional. And it was just a lot. And I think it's really important to be honest because you look out there and you look at everyone else and you just assume, like I know that you have an incredible sex life. So people probably also feel this about your sex life, is that everyone out there is fucking 7 times a week, mind-blowing sex, incredible. But like, I just want to share that that's not always the truth.
Correct.
Because a lot of people out there will be having sex once a week and having a healthy, connective relationship and being like, fuck, my relationship's less than because I'm not doing it 7 times a week. Some people might not have fucked for 3 months and have been like, I don't know how to come out of this and I'm too ashamed to even talk to anyone about it. So I just think that it's important to be like, it's okay for like your sex life not to be raging.
There's seasons of life. Like it's okay if like, and actually my boyfriend had said this to me before of like, it's okay, babe, if we haven't had sex for 2 nights. Because I'm not joking. I start to literally panic when it's been 2 nights. But like, I also want to say that, and this is not to be like, oh, we have a great sex life, but this is actually to help any of you that are having average sex realize that like, there is sex out there that you cannot even put into words. Like it sounds crazy. Maybe you have this. Like I go into different time zones when we have
sex. I saw that on your story.
Like I full blackout and I actually can't remember having sex most of the time. In the beginning, I actually got really scared.
You were like, is he date raping me?
Literally, because I was like, I can't remember like our sex. Like I would really think about it and I'd be able to remember little pockets, but it felt like when you have blackout drunk sex.
Oh my gosh.
But he has the same thing. So what would happen is like, if we haven't had sex for one night, I'm like, babe, we haven't had sex in ages. He's like, babe, we literally had sex 2 nights ago. But like, that's actually to make everybody aware that like that kind of sex is out there because I do feel like a lot of women and men, it's so normalized to settle these days that people settle for bad sex. And we go through seasons too. When we're having a really busy week, like for us, we are very sexually active people, but sometimes our sex is 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Sometimes our sex
is not just long, huge sessions.
Exactly. Like now, because we are really busy with just like life and buying this house and what's going on, like majority of the time our sex during the week is shorter than our sex on the weekend. And like sometimes we'll have like those 2 hour sex sessions on the weekend or randomly during the weekday. But we actually both, especially me, because I just am always like creatively thinking and like my brain's always on, I really have to be like, it's okay for me to just drop in and be present for this moment, however long it's going to go, and not be like, oh my God, time is wasted. But we've talked about this before of like, you know, when you're pregnant, for example, some people can't have sex when they're pregnant. If they're having like pelvic issues, for example, or postpartum, you can't have sex for 6 weeks.
Yeah.
And it's so important that you actually can feel safe and intimate in your relationship without sex as well. Because
100%.
the reality is that like you can get really sick, or like if you break a leg or if something happens and you're not having sex for a few weeks, it's like you can go into those panic moments and like there are seasons of life.
Yeah.
And like you went through a season of life and there'll be another season of life.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
You are so right. And I would definitely say that as my mental health is getting better, my libido is coming back. And so we've had a great week and it's been super intimate. So I feel like the season is passing. But I love also what you said about the pelvic pain, because I have fibromyalgia, which is a chronic pain disorder, and it's predominantly in my pelvis. I've been very lucky that it's never impacted my sex life. I don't have painful sex, but I am aware how many women do. And it's, again, something that we don't talk about enough, which is that, like, there are reasons that sex is less enjoyable for people, or at some times of the month, if you have endometriosis, like you are in so much pain, you don't even want anyone to touch you. So of course you're not going to have sex on your period, even if everyone's like, oh yeah, like we have sex on our period, like you don't.
Right. And like, also let's just say like the kind of sex that you have with your partner can change, and that's okay.
Yeah.
Like we go through phases of like really dirty sex and then like super making love. And then like sometimes we literally just like have sex for 5 minutes and we're not even like fucking rabbits. We're literally just like together as one because we just want to feel connected at the end of the day.
Exactly. It's not even about orgasm or anything.
It's not. Our sex is never about orgasm. It's like, it's actually about connection. Like we laugh sometimes because we're like, can you just get inside of me just for like, so we can be one and then we'll go to bed, because we just want the connection sometimes. Right. And like, that's a beautiful thing when you can heal your sexuality, and you can even bring that into your relationship if your partner necessarily hasn't done any work, because if one of you really embraces your sexuality, it does give permission for the other person to embrace theirs. And that was very much like our relationship of like, I really embrace this. So it's really allowed him to open up like his sexuality more. And in saying that, we also both from the very beginning of our relationship really made the commitment to each other, like that we don't want sex to be about orgasms. Yeah. Because we don't want that pressure. Yeah.
That was what I was going to say next, is like the pressure is also something that's not spoken about. And one of my best friends messaged me this week being like, we haven't had sex in a while because we are just so busy. They don't live together, so they don't spend much time together, blah, blah, blah. And we were talking about pressure. And I said as a joke, and it's actually not funny, but like I said as a joke, I was like, yeah, sometimes you feel like if you're not fucking, that they're going to fuck someone else. Like, of course they're not. Yeah. In 9 out of 10 relationships, of course they're not. But there is a pressure, and I don't even think it's on women. I'm sure men feel it as well. But sometimes there is a pressure that you have to fuck, it's been 2 days, it's been 2 weeks. And what I have experienced with my partner is just probably like what you were saying, is there is no pressure. And he said to me, you know, a bit of an extreme, but he said, we could not fuck for 6 months and I would love you just as much as I love you now. I know.
I love that.
And I was like, oh my goodness, like that take
love.
The pressure off.
Yeah. And then when the pressure isn't there, you actually want to be more intimate. Yeah. That's the beautiful thing of like, it actually is so funny. As an example, the other day we hadn't had sex in like, I don't know, like 2 or 3 days. And I think I was on my period and like, it was just really busy. And he said like, babe, maybe we should try not having sex for a week, which for us is a long time, right? And everyone's different. So like, this isn't to be like, oh, Monica's sex life is how we all need to be. But maybe we shouldn't have sex for a week and like wait till the weekend because it'll be really fucking good. And I was kind of up for it because I was like, we actually spoke in that moment of like, there's going to be times like, for example, when babies come along, when we can't have sex for a week and we need to learn to be okay with that. And because the pressure wasn't there on him or me, we literally had sex that night. And that's not like to illustrate anything else other than when the pressure isn't there, you take the stress off. And if your body isn't producing as much adrenaline and cortisol, then your libido's there and you're relaxed, then you're actually open to receiving and you want to be intimate.
Exactly.
You're not in your head.
Yeah, because when there's pressure, you are in your head and sex and pleasure comes from your body.
Right.
So I love this idea of just taking the pressure off. And I feel the same, that when you don't feel that pressure, you just feel free to be you.
Yes.
And when maybe that's like, you don't want to have sex for a week, 2 weeks, a month. It doesn't matter what that is for you, but taking that pressure away is beautiful. But to take that pressure away, something that you and I both have in our relationships is open, honest, non-judgmental, loving communication.
Like seriously, that is so important. If you can make sex in your relationship something that is purely about intimacy, that creates more safety to be like, babe, I am so tired. Like this happens to us of like, you know, 1 minute in, I'm like, I'm sorry, babe, I'm so tired. Like, we just go to bed, and there's no judgment. It's like, of course, let's go to sleep. There's never this pressure of like, you need to do X, Y, and Z for me, or I need X, Y, and Z, because that's why like self-pleasure in a relationship is also important. And like, I personally think that it should be something that's very openly spoken about, so there isn't shame, because sometimes you just need to get off, and you don't want to have to work on another person. You don't want the other person there. You just need to get off and then call it a day, and that's okay. Like, I don't see anything wrong with that, especially when it's an open thing in your relationship.
100%. Like, it's just about talking about it, isn't it? Like, I actually don't masturbate in my relationship, and he doesn't, but I think that's because we're in a long distance relationship a lot of the time. So of course, when we're on our own, all we do is do it on our own. So when we're together, it's like, oh, everything is together. But yeah, like, you know, if I wanted to have an afternoon with my vibrator and he's at work, I'm going to do it.
Right, exactly.
Because it's like what my body feels like in that moment.
And then that's also taking the pressure off him to please you.
Exactly.
And then sex with him becomes more of a connection time and more about intimacy and less about getting off.
I think these are the conversations that I don't see that are happening.
Yeah.
Like the reality of the fact that sometimes you have sex and you just stop because you're like, I'm too tired.
Yeah.
The reality that I didn't have sex for nearly 3 weeks and I literally was like, oh my God, my relationship is over. Because I have an anxious brain that made a story out of something, because society tells you that if you're not fucking 5 times a week, 2 times a week, whatever it is, that your relationship is not as good, not as passionate about someone else's as someone else's. And then you feel like, oh my God, I'm settling. Oh my God.
Okay, and 2 things on that. So number 1 is like the catch-22 is like we have that in society, but at the same time, there's still shame around sex being talked about. So there's still the problem where people don't talk about it in their relationship, or it becomes like a thing to talk about. Like, it becomes a heavy topic rather than something just a quick light comment whilst the 2 of you are making tea, right? Like, that's the whole problem, where there's so many people that feel so much shame about their sex life, but at the same time, then they also are like, they're wanting sex, they don't want sex. It's like the catch-22. So it creates this like tension in their body. And then the second thing is obviously with social media and Instagram, you see these like hot Instagram couples, and because they're being all sexy with their ripped abs, you just assume like they're having the wildest sex. And not to say they're not, but it's like, if you are noticing, and this is like such about a social media thing, but if you are noticing yourself comparing to other people on Instagram,
unfollow.
Or like mute, or just get the fuck off the app. Just stop scrolling and get off the app, because the only person that you should be comparing yourself to is you.
I also think that as we move into the last part of the episode, this is so interesting to talk about, is the initiation of sex and how it can be really difficult. And I don't think this is even like just on same-sex relationships. I know the dynamic heterosexual relationships. I think, and I don't know how the dynamic works in same-sex relationships, but I know
I'm actually interviewing a woman for my book, so I'm so keen to get a bunch of information.
I really want to have more discussions like that.
Yeah, well, okay, I'm going to get in contact with her, and my editor is putting me in contact, because my editor and I were having this conversation, this is for another podcast, about how same-sex relationships, I guess for the most part, generally speaking, like on dating apps and stuff, there is nothing wrong with subdom. Like, you will literally choose in your profile whether you want to be submissive or dominant. But in heterosexual relationships, so like opposite sex relationships, there is shame about that. It's like you are a misogynist or you're not a feminist if you want to be submissive. Versus in same-sex relationships, there's this acceptance of like, that is polarity.
Wow.
And we were talking about it, and I was like, she's like, I'm really interested to hear, like, where do you think that comes from? And I was thinking about it, and I was like, well, I think if I was really to think about the psychology of it, it's like if they generally, for the most part, people that are in a same-sex relationships, they have gone through their journey and they are fully accepting themselves. So they are accepting, I want to be submissive. I want to be dominant. No problem.
No shame, no problem.
Exactly. They're like, they're fucking owning it, because that is now something that is more accepted in society, as in same-sex relationships. But still, for people in opposite sex relationships, there is shame, guilt, X, Y, and Z for saying, I want to be submissive and I want my man to be dominant, or like vice versa. And anyway, that was just, we need to have
we'll jam on that in another podcast. That's so interesting. I think that there's also this difficulty, which is like, sometimes you will say to your boyfriend or to your girlfriend, whatever, like, I want to fuck you tonight, or I want you to fuck me. You verbalize that you want something, right? Which I think is difficult for a lot of people. And I think that when you can get to the point that you can do that, it's liberating.
Because it's self-acceptance.
And self-expression.
Exactly.
But then I think that there's also the issue that life is so busy, okay? So for example, you could say to your boyfriend or to your girlfriend, like, I want you to fuck me tonight. And then work gets in the way. They're stressed about work, whatever. You then take that personally. Like the other day I said to my boyfriend, like, I want you to fuck me, or I want you to eat my pussy or whatever. And I came in and he was just playing FIFA. And so I kind of like stood there and I was like, okay. And I was like, right, I can either, old Louise, before doing the work, will get offended by this, will make a story out of it, which is that FIFA's more important, he's not interested in me, he don't, whatever. Or Louise now doing the work can basically just like get into bed and like kindly express and communicate, like, I'd like us to share some time together now, okay? So we did, had an amazing experience. And then at the end, after that happened, I said to him, like, it didn't make me feel great when I communicated that thing with you, which felt still a little bit like vulnerable, right? And then when I came in, you were just playing FIFA and kind of like didn't look up. And he was like, I am so sorry. Like, it was just my male brain that was just like, so, you know, you just like get stuck on one thing. And we just communicated about it. I communicated how it made me feel. And he said, I take the feedback on board. That will never happen again. Like, I am here to worship you. And I will never, I'll never take that for granted. And I was like, yeah, fuck FIFA. Now,
but also I want to say what was so important in there is that he was like, it was just my male brain. And that's why I'm always like, I think that one of the most important things in a relationship is to understand the opposite sex, obviously if you're in an opposite sex relationship, because a male brain is so different to our female brain.
They are so logical and rational.
Right. And so like for him, what he said was like, I just got stuck on one thing. That is a male brain. They hone in on one thing and they block out everything else. Whereas we are like focused on 50 million things because of the issue in our brain. They are committed. They are committed to their one task in front of them. So if you're not in front of them with your pussy, with your legs spread, he's not focused on you. And that doesn't mean that's what you have to do. It means that you need to just like
navigate to get to that end situation.
You need to instead
create the space.
Correct. And it's like, that's not a woman sitting there, you know, playing a game, whatever, because she would then have heard you coming in, remembered and turned around. It's a man, he's focused, he's committed. So what do you need to then do to just kind of remind him, this is what I said, blah, 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 because then it won't become a big deal, a story, X, Y, and Z, because you're understanding how to engage with a man as a woman.
I love that. And I also think that it's also about taking responsibility for you. So I have an anxious attachment style, and so does one of my best friends. And she messaged her boyfriend something similar the other day. And he replied, like, so stressed at work, like, can't tonight. Her anxious attachment style was so triggered. Obviously, it's like rejection. Oh my God, you didn't even say like, I would love to fuck you, but tonight, baby, I can't. I'll make it up to you tomorrow. And I said to her, men, without generalizing too much, are logical, rational, not emotive, particularly when stressed. Whereas women
and their libido is down the tank when they're stressed.
Whereas when we are stressed, we are even more emotional. So he went back and went into more like, very stressed at work, must fix this, you know, thinking in logical terms.
Correct.
And she's thinking,
and he was focused on his job.
Exactly. And she's like,
on her.
oh my God. Like, and I had to then say, I get it. I would feel rejected too.
Yeah. And it's really interesting because like for a lot of women, especially if you are the feminine one in your relationships, you are more submissive. Like when we're really stressed, it's like, please fuck me. Like take the stress away from me. But because a man has to do that, if he's stressed and exhausted, he's like another task I have to do. And it's not because you're a task. That is his brain going, I have to expel my resources onto you. But literally. But even if he isn't finishing inside of you, it's still work for him. And if he has had a really intense day and he's exhausted, that's too much work. But for us, we've had an intense day. We're just fucking lying there. We just get to receive. And so for us, it's like rejuvenating and it releases stress for us. Like it's the complete opposite. So we also have to remember that when a man is really stressed, he's not like us. He doesn't then want to fuck. Majority of the time, he's like, I want to be alone. I don't want you to talk to me. I need space. I need to actually recharge. And him recharging is about him not giving his resources away, which means he cannot spend any time with you. He wants to be alone. And that doesn't mean that he doesn't want to be with you. It's like understanding. That's why it's like understanding men can actually really relieve a lot of anxiety or avoidance in a relationship because you don't get triggered as much because you're just like, oh, he's just being a man.
I think that's so interesting, like understanding where they're coming from. Because if I get even vaguely stressed, which is all the time because I have so much going on, my sex drive disappears. Like I don't want to get fucked to make me feel better. I don't want to, I even though I know it'll make me feel better, my sex drive just disappears. Like you could literally kiss me and like nothing will happen down there because it's like the stress has just like disconnected the libido. So I am very open and compassionate to, I mean, my boyfriend has never said I'm too stressed to fuck you. And he also doesn't really get stressed. But I just like to think that if someone was to say that to me or whatever, if he was to say that to me, I'd be like, that's cool, I get it.
Yeah.
It's just about being compassionate to
Correct.
how the other person works,
Correct.
how their systems work,
Mhm.
what turns them on, what turns them off.
Yep.
And again, it just comes back to how do you discuss that? You communicate.
Exactly. And even like on that point with like you then having a low libido, it's like, okay, well, if you know each other, how else could he be intimate with you? Maybe he makes you dinner, maybe he runs you a bath, but then those things can then boost your libido back up.
Totally.
So instead of just going straight for the pussy, there.
Okay, Donald Trump.
Lol, but like, it's really important for you to understand how to like be turned on in other ways than just like act like physical foreplay.
Yeah.
Because for example, if he runs you a bar, that's like your libido could be back.
Yeah, exactly that. And all I need is a tiny bit of space to decompress.
Yep.
So he'll cook me dinner,
Yep.
and I'll just like lie on the bed for 5-10 minutes, have a hot shower.
Yep.
And then when I've been able to breathe out, it's like my body can just reconnect the systems, and then he'll come to me.
Out.
Yeah, and then we'll just have a cuddle, and then I'm like, yeah, I'm fucking back. like,
and that comes with serious self-awareness.
Yeah.
Open communication, honesty, and really like self-trust. Because if you don't trust someone, you have to go. If you don't trust yourself, you're not gonna feel safe to be able to communicate with somebody else because you're so worried about them leaving you or whatever that you're in this fawn response the whole time. So you can't be like, you know what I need is a hot shower. I'm gonna go do that for myself, knowing that I can then come back and we're gonna be together. It's like it's this constant people pleasing to make sure that like he doesn't reject you, but at that exact same time, you are actually rejecting yourself and therefore the relationship and thus him.
And then all the knock-on effects of all of those things.
That's what I'm saying. It's like self-awareness seriously makes a relationship better. Like doing the work individually makes a relationship so much better. Like whenever I have like someone DM me being like, can we do work as like a couple? I'm like, no. Because you need to have healed separately as individuals. Because when you have two healthy individuals,
you're even healthier as a
the relationship isn't a problem. Like you don't need the fucking couples counseling or whatever. You know what I mean? But when one of you hasn't done the work or when both of you haven't done the work, there's projection all the time. So you think you need to do work together. You don't. You need to do work separately. And then if you want to do like intimacy shit or whatever together, that's different. But there's not like necessarily healing work that has to be done together. It's healing work that has to be done separately.
Oh, that is so important.
Yeah.
And I also think the bit about nervous systems as well is so important. Like you said, if you are in fight or flight, the biology of your body is that your body is trying to survive. Yep. If you've just been chased by, or if you're about to be chased by a tiger in the savannah in caveman days, you don't want to fuck.
No.
You're like, I'm about to die. Like, why would, do you know what I mean? Like,
exactly.
So biologically as well, it's about being in a state of a regulated nervous system.
Yeah.
And a lot of the time, I am in a dysregulated nervous system, not only because I have a chronic pain condition, but also because my body is very used to being in stressful situations. Yeah. My healing journey has been learning to regulate much more frequently, not being addicted to the stress hormones. Right. And I think that is why I have had the best sex in my life in the last 4 years, in my last 2 relationships, this one and the prior one, because my nervous system's been regulated. Yeah. So my libido has been the highest it's ever been. Yeah. The pleasure has been the highest it's ever been. So if anyone's listening to this thinking like, I'm not having sex, or when I do, I'm in my head, or I don't feel like having sex, a lot of it can be because your nervous system is dysregulated, right?
I mean, you look at the like world today, it's like we wake up, we're on our phone, stress hormone. We're like running to work. We don't take any time for ourselves.
Caffeine on the way to work.
Exactly. Like
stress hormone.
The way that we fucking eat doesn't help our bodies. Yeah. We are stressed on the way home. We're constantly inputting all this information, and we are exhausted from the overstimulation. Yeah. And then we come home, we turn the TV on, we have music on. Like, no, why don't you come home, have no music on, have silence, bring your nervous system back down to earth. Like silence. I love silence.
I also feel like being in this space, so we're in Monica's villa in Tulum on the beach. It is literally incredible.
She walks in and it's like, wait, I thought this was the hotel lobby.
Honestly, I thought we were in the hotel lobby and it's just like their living room. I was like, what the fuck? But I honestly feel like being on this sofa, my whole nervous system, because we had breakfast before this and we are such high energy when we're together. It's like,
we're like literally screaming.
Her boyfriend's like, I fucking love you guys. You basically should be a lesbian couple. So I'm out of here. Like, I'm just going to leave you guys to have some girl time.
He does. He got us through the end. I was like, I'm going. And then left.
But like full of love. Not like you're too much. Just like.
No. Full of love. He's like, I'm just going to let you guys do
I'm
going to go work. Yeah, literally. Quite literally.
And then we left breakfast and we came here. Yeah. I honestly feel like I've like gone into the sofa.
Can you come back Monday?
Yeah, but I want my boyfriend to fuck me on this sofa because I'm like, this is heaven. I just want to lie here and be worshipped on the sofa. And that's because my nervous system has just gone like, there's no road there. I can hear the water in the background. The ocean is there. So it's about creating spaces. I know that's difficult for people that work all the time, have kids. I really get that.
But your home environment's a big thing.
5 minutes, light a candle.
Exactly.
And breathe.
That's what I mean. So like, even if you're living in like New York City, which is like chaos, right? So I know this now from my mom because she's an interior designer, but like, for example, not having too much color and chaos in the decor of your house is going to calm your nervous system because your eyes need to be relaxed. So like, hence a more neutral color palette, it's going to be more relaxing. That doesn't mean it has to be boring. Like, I really don't like
very sterile chic.
Yeah, I don't like boring, everyone's house is the fucking same these days vibe. I really don't. But you can like the color palette, the way that your eye moves around the room, I've learned from her, does affect your nervous system. It does affect how stressed you are. So like, for example, our room is really about coziness, calmness. Like, we do not want much color in our room. Our eye needs to feel stable, and our nervous system needs to feel relaxed in it. So having like a hot pink bedroom wouldn't help that. You know what I mean?
I don't think that would help anything.
No, but even, for example, having like a bunch of pictures, like a huge amount of photo frames everywhere with all these different colored pictures.
Too busy.
It's too busy for your eye. Yeah. So like, even if you're not living by the beach per se, because like I don't, like when you're in London, you don't, for example, even in Tulum, like you don't, right? It's like, you don't need to live by the beach. I'm actually not a beach person anyway. It's about little things in your home environment. Can you light a candle at your desk? Can you have a cup of tea at your desk? Nice bed sheets.
Good pillows.
Have a bath.
Yeah.
Do a slower skincare routine, for example. Don't look at your phone first thing in the morning. Like when I wake up, I turn the blinds up, like I press the button and the blinds go up straight away. So the first thing is like light, and I see the trees outside our window. Like that, even, for example, is a beautiful thing. Like, I know for a lot of moms, what's really helpful is they wake up earlier than their kids.
To get a bit of them time.
Exactly. And they make tea, they go outside, they just breathe. You don't have to even meditate. Just like go outside and just literally fucking breathe for 5 minutes and then come back in and get into the day.
I think it's just about identifying what stresses you out. It can be such small things. Like for me, if I went into the bedroom, because I can literally just like take my stuff off, drop it on the floor. I'll be like, I'll come back and get that later. And it's still there. Because like I'm just a Sag, probably have it like, it's just like whip it off.
Oh, shit
like,
everywhere.
Yeah, shit everywhere. And then I'm like, hey, actually my boyfriend is amazing.
Oh my, wait, okay, same. He gets so annoyed. He's like, can you please be tidy? I'm like, I am.
My boyfriend doesn't even say that. He just like does it.
Oh my God,
I love
that's so good. I'm like, I am tidy. I guess because we live together.
We're not dirty. We're not dirty. We're just a little bit messy.
We just like,
fluid.
Yeah, exactly. I just don't, like, if I'm busy, like I don't have the fucking time
to tidy up.
And also like it doesn't affect my workflow, so I'm not going to fix it.
Same as me, but it does affect my bedroom flow. Yes. Because if I was in a bedroom where there was just shit everywhere, I'm like, no, this is not sexy. This is not calm. My brain's like thinking about it. So even small things, just tidy up your space. It can be like, it's just about identifying.
Wait, have you heard of like sexual blueprints?
Yes, and my sex therapist on this podcast, if anyone's listening on my podcast, basically said that they're really basic and they need to be developed further, but they're good.
Yes, I mean, so of course, like with any blueprint, it's like, I mean, you are your own blueprint, right? Like bottom line, you are yourself, but like, I think that can be a really good intro way
100%.
to just know, like for a lot of people, it's like, I don't even know what stresses me
100%.
out. So like, for example, for my boyfriend, he's definitely maybe more of a sensual. So he, he doesn't want there to be like shit all over the room. Like he wants to like dim the lights. Whereas I'm like, babe, leave the lights bright. I don't give a fuck. I'm definitely more of like kinky sexual experience. So I always think like you can make blueprints your own because you are your own blueprint, but that could be a really good like starting point for people to look into just to help with self-awareness of maybe these 3 things are blocking me from getting out of my head with sex.
You are so right, because and actually me and my sex therapist have created 13 because we want to develop it further. So I'll send them to you, you can have a look at it. But exactly that, because I watched the Goop episode where this couple have been together for 10 years and they were like, our sex life's awful. And it was just because she was a kinky and he was, I don't remember what the other one was. But because of that, they just weren't learning to fuck each other in the right way or pleasure each other.
Right. And so many women think men are just sexual and kinky, but actually there's only like 30% of men that are sexual. Most men, a lot of men are sensual and energetic.
That was it. One of them was energetic and the other one was like
so fascinating,
something.
Right? Because like, just from a generalized point of view, you would think that women would be more sensual, energetic, and men would be more kinky and sexual. But so many women are like kinky and sexual, and so many men are sensual and energetic. Like I am not, like more around my period, I'm sensual and energetic, but like there can be fucking clothes everywhere and I don't give a crap. But for me, I'm actually more sexual and kinky depending on time of the month. Like that's where also the sexual blueprints need to be like adapted, because
they're not taking that in.
Right. For a man, he's going to be generally speaking the same. But I love to then blend in, like, in a season of life, he could be sensual.
Yeah. And in a different one.
And in a different season of life, he could be kinky. On holidays, he could be kinky. Yeah. During the work week, he could be sensual. And then for a woman, she could be kinky in ovulation, but energetic on her period. So we have to like take those things into account. But, you know, it's interesting to know, because a lot of women assume he's just sexual, I'm energetic, and he's a man, so he just can get off within 3 seconds. Yeah. But a lot of men, their brain is somewhere else because there's weird smells in the room, or there's a noise that's annoying him.
So true. When I first met my boyfriend, he was like, it's so frustrating that men get labeled as like that they can just fuck anyone whenever they want. He was like, that's not true. Like, I think he's more sensual and probably more energetic.
Yes, 100%.
And I think I'm sensual, energetic, plus kinky. Yep. Like, I think that's my combo. Yep. And yeah, we'll link all of this in the show notes so people can like start to look into it. It's a great way also just to open up the conversation. Correct. Rather than being like, you do this and it makes me feel this, which is the 101 of do not do, let alone in a sexual discussion. Correct. And instead it's like, I did this quiz, I'm this, what are you? Let's discuss. It's like talking through a third party vehicle. Exactly.
And this is why, like, also to add to that, talk about your period and your cycle more with your partner.
I don't know enough about that.
Right. The reason why I say this is really important is because it can be confusing for men when it's like, but last week you wanted this and now you want this. And then she gets confused because then she feels shame of like, why do I keep changing my mind? Or why is it last week I wanted him to touch me this way, but now I'm like, don't touch me like that. Like, it's too much.
That's so interesting.
So it's like, it's really important to also take into account, because for men, it can be very confusing for them in their relationships. And for women, it can therefore be confusing because he's putting that confusion on her. So she second guesses her like innate feelings. Like, even we've talked about this, and he has said to me, I love knowing where you are in your cycle, and I love when you communicate what you're feeling, because it helps me to then know, because he's learnt my cycle. So he's learnt when she is feeling like he can tell when I'm got this like vulnerable face on. Apparently I have a vulnerable face in my luteal phase and on my period. So he knows how to touch me and how to love me and how to talk to me during that time. And it's helped our relationship because there's less confusion. There doesn't need to be tiffs over nothing. Yeah. And it's literally just about understanding the other person
better.
I know what he needs when he's stressed. That's like, a man has their own cycle. And I think for men, because they have a 24-hour cycle, you then need to be blending it more into just the cycle of life and seasons. So it's really helpful when you know that I need to be doing this for him when he's stressed, or this when this is going on. And when he knows he needs to be doing this for you in this phase of your cycle and whatever in the other phase of your cycle.
Oh, and yeah, I think just to wrap up again, it all just comes back to communication, doesn't it? Like, I don't feel, and I think this is one of the beauties of being in my 30s, having learned so many lessons in past relationships, and having done all the self-work, is that it's just about communicating. Some days I'm like, I just want you to touch me like this or to do this, and it's beautiful. And then some days I'm like, I want you to do it hard or like fast. And that probably ties into the cycles, which I'm not aware of. I need to learn about cycle tracking and all of that. So we'll do another episode on that, because I think that's really interesting. But yeah, I think just to wrap up, like, it's just communication. It is. But communication starts with going inwards before you communicate outwards.
And I also want to touch the last thing on that with the whole topic of, we kind of veered, but I think it was perfect, the topic of, you know, the authenticity of relationships.
That was what we were going to do the relationship on. I mean,
this was perfect. I love this episode.
Is perfect.
Point being with that, just a title back in, is you need to be a student every day in your relationship, and you need to learn. Like, I'm not joking when I say this. When we have like a tiff or a difference, and I've learned something and I'm like, I might forget this, I write it in a fucking iNote. I have an iNote of his name and things to remember. Because if you're not learning, you're not going to improve your relationship. You know, you have to learn, this is what he needs in this time of his life, or, you know, when, whatever it is, like, you need to be a student and a learner to continue to feel like you can have healthy, open, and safe communication. And the self-acceptance piece. If you want him to fully self-accept himself so that he can communicate that to you, there needs to be safety, and he needs to feel like you are learning and not having the same argument all the time because you're not taking his feedback.
The reason I'm laughing is because literally last week, we finished having sex and I sat down and I was like, so how was the blowjob? Like I literally, I was like, let's have like a feedback session. Like, what did you love? What did you not love? And it was so good. He was like, I love it when you go like halfway down and then go full down. And I was like, amazing, because I would never have clocked that as being like a takeaway from this. Then you told me, and now I'm like, fuck, I can't wait to do it again because I know exactly what felt good.
And then you know you're going to please him.
Exactly, and I'm like excited.
Yes, that can
rather than being like, oh, I'm nervous.
But that can only happen when you're confident and he's confident. If there is shame, if there is insecurity, if there is unsafety in a relationship, there can't be that feedback, that open, honest feedback with a healthy energy, because there's fear of offending the other person. You can't take it on board because you're insecure. You're thinking, oh my God, I did something wrong because he didn't love this. It comes down to like the confidence and just doing the fucking work.
I love this. This is such important discussion.
It is. We need to talk about sex more.
We really do, because no one talks about it. And also, this is one of my favorite episodes that we've ever done, because we are talking about the things that people don't talk about.
Exactly.
Like people feeling like, I don't know if he enjoyed that, or like we're not doing it enough. Everyone else is doing it. Oh my God. And actually, this has just been so amazing.
This has been amazing. I love you.
I love you.
Oh, I'm so glad.
I love you.
Thank you guys for listening. All the links are below for everything.
And we'll be back soon.
Yeah, we will be.
Love you.
Love you. Bye-bye.
Bye.